Oh, it's going. Okay. Wait. Oh, I should probably start this thingy. Honestly, I don't know. I might just use like this mic. Yeah, we'll see. Whatever. All right. Hi everyone. For context, my name is Jason. I just recently graduated. I like pacing, so I'm going to pace. I recently graduated from Rice University. Like I guess like a month ago, which is crazy. And I remember telling myself I would never make one of these videos because I'm like that shit is like too cringe. But here I am making one of these videos. You never know how things are gonna change, right? I feel like that's like the story of life. Like the only thing that like you can expect is like change, right? So here I am making one of these videos, and I always wanted to like preface these videos. And I remember people who make these videos like they also like preface this themselves by saying like, oh, you know, like this is like just my kind of like general experience. Don't kind of take that and use it as something that as an outline of like exactly what you should do, right? And when you first listen to that, you're like, dude, what the fuck? I don't care. Just like tell me like what the hell like you did, right? But honestly, that's like really important advice to like just take a moment to listen to and like process. Because I think that like yeah, like after going through the whole process myself, it really is like a very individualized thing, right? Like your life and the directions that you choose to take your life and like the choices and like opportunities that you decide to pursue are going to be very drastically different from what I decide to pursue, right? And you shouldn't base what I decide to pursue as something that would work with your personality, your skill set, or your interests, right? It just doesn't make sense because you're a different person from me, right? So you can't like generalize those experiences as like a roadmap of what you should do. But I think it's still like fun and useful to like listen and watch a lot of these videos because I remember like when I was applying, right, or like when I was like at least interested in applying, I would watch a whole bunch of these, right? And it is useful to take like bits of information and advice from each of these videos and form just like a general conceptual outline of what makes like a good applicant or just like some ideas that you can take away of like things that you can do to like do well, right? And I feel like that's the way to use these types of videos. So everything that I'm talking about and explaining is my own experience, right? It's just me like reflecting on like the shit and stuff that like I have done, but don't generalize that to like mean that this is something that you have to do, right? Okay, just wanted to make that clear. Cool. What else? Was there anything else I wanted to say? Oh yeah, this type of video is just gonna be like very conversational and just like I don't know. I'm just gonna say whatever the hell I want because and I'm not gonna like cut and clip a whole bunch of like segments or whatever because I feel like a lot of videos nowadays are very like they're like designed like they're edited super well and like clips perfectly and everything and kind of just like designed to grab your attention and keep your attention and things that are boring don't keep your attention so you just like click away from the video so they're just trying to like increase user engagement as much as possible. I have seen how like that kind of like has wrecked my own attention span. So if you want to like get the useful stuff in this video, I mean, like, honestly, you could just like skip ahead or whatever, right? But I'm just gonna try and keep it as like conversational and informal as possible, so it feels like conversation. And if you can like hold your attention span, and just like sit with me and like listen to me as I awkwardly like stumble over my words and like kind of just like ramble and like walk around my room, then you know what, props to you because like I'm pretty sure like 90% of the people in our generation cannot do that. So all right, let's so I just like learned how to like screen record while also like recording like my face at the same time. And I really hope that the audio is recording right now because if not, that would be a little wait. Oh my god. Okay, this one's recording. I think I'm also recording to like my computer, but we'll see. All right, anyways, going to minimize this. All right, here's the moment that you have all been waiting for, right? All the juicy secret details of my life. Honestly, that was like the fun part of. I'm gonna scroll again. When I like ramble, I'm gonna scroll. But when I'm like when I ramble, I'm gonna scroll. But when I'm like actually like highlighting stuff, I'll like sit down and like go through it with you. But this is like the fun part of like watching these videos. I remember you get like such an intimate like peek into like everything like the person has done in their past like 4 years of college, or if they're like non-traditional, just like what have they been doing like before applying to med school or whatever. I remember like watching these and just like going through so many of them. Like wow, that's like weird. I'm just seeing like this really like deep intimate look at like this person's like life. And I wonder how that feels on the other side. And now like being on the other side, it does feel a little bit weird. My heart's like it's like racing a little bit right now. But yeah, I mean you're gonna get to see everything here. I'm not gonna like I don't know like I mean other than like sensitive information that like you can use to like dox me and like I don't know if you want to find me and like do something weird, whatever, bro. Like come on now, don't do that. That's not cool. But yeah, I mean I'll put like all my activities and stuff for like you can be able to read them and like the personal statement and everything. You can just like pause through that. But yeah, I don't know, it feels weird being on the other side of this. But okay, so context. I graduated from Rice. I'm like a traditional applicant, 4 years of college or whatever, and then applied straight through. Again, right, take this as like just something fun to like watch and get an idea of what I don't know, just like an application to med school is like, right? And then use what you think is useful, but don't take it as an outline of what you should do yourself because your story is like personal to you, right? All right, I don't know, personal identifying information. Is there anything like useful for you to like get from this? Not really, just my name. Scrolling through, I'm Asian. Yes, if you couldn't tell already. Wow, amazing. So observant of you. That's awesome. Speak 2 languages. Cool. Yeah, all this other stuff is just like not really like useful, right? Except for this. I mean, this is like grades, right? So I'd say like your grades are definitely like really important. That's an understatement. If the way I talk is like annoying, I'm sorry. I'm like very inexact with my words at times and very just like I speak generally, but when I have to speak specifically, I will speak specifically. But yeah, grades are important in school. Wow, who could have known? That's crazy. That's almost like the one thing they hammer and drill into you as a student, like for your whole like student career, right? Amazing. You didn't need me to tell you that to understand that, but yeah, I mean, do well in school. I like so let me see. This is like semester 1. Oh wait, no, this is like AP stuff. So this is like stuff I had in high school. So I had like a decent amount of like AP credits coming into school. Not like as many as like some of my other friends that went to like really correct high schools and stuff. But I think in general that like helped ease the transition to school in the sense that I didn't have to take like a shit ton of classes that were like very rigorous. Like those like intro bio and intro chem classes that people take like their first couple semesters of college. Yeah, I think that helped ease the transition a little bit. But that didn't stop me from getting a couple of B's my first semester, which is fine. I mean, honestly, this is just because like I didn't really know how to study, and you'll see that like kind of honestly, I'm gonna be honest. I feel like I didn't learn how to study until like probably like senior year of college, which is crazy, right? You would think like someone who's like been through high school and like did well and like went to like a college that's like not bad, like Rice is like not a bad school, right? You'd be like, okay, like obviously this dude has his shit together, right? But I mean, the truth of it is, all of us really don't have our shit together, and then you like slowly start like figuring it out as you go on, right? And for me, that happens to be like senior year of college, where I'm like, okay, like I literally sat down and like I tried to understand like how to study. This will be like a topic for a different video. And again, you can see like I'm a big rambler. Like I'll have a thought and then I'll just like go with that thought. But I mean, you clicked on this video. This is like, you know, this is like domain expansion, right? Like whatever like I choose to say here is like whatever I choose to say, and you're stuck. So I'm sorry, but yeah, I mean, honestly, it doesn't matter if you don't have it figured out in the beginning, especially like in the beginning of college, right? That's fine if you like fuck up a little bit. But the main idea is to not continue fucking up, right? Like when you fuck up once, like see if you can like change something so that that same fuck up doesn't happen the next time. Wow, how amazingly eloquent of me to say that. Yeah, so first semester of freshman year, I'd say I took like a pretty light course load, and it's still like, okay, people are gonna be like, oh my god, a B plus is like not that bad. Why are you freaking out, right? I mean, you gotta understand, like I feel like the impression I got of like pre med, just like when I first got to college, because like I mean, I don't have anyone in my family who's like a doctor in like the U.S. system, right? So in my head, all that I knew was just like what was around me and what was on YouTube. And when I first got into like pre-med, I'm like, oh my god, dude, everyone's like fucking neurotic and like you gotta get an A on everything or you're screwed, right? Like anything less than a 4 is like GG man, you're cooked, like leave, like why are you even applying? But that is not the case, right? Because like I was able to get into med school, amazing, cool, awesome, whatever. Like a B is not going to kill you, right? And I like end up getting B's later or whatever somewhere. Yeah, B, right? It's whatever, dude, right? Just try and improve. And if you do fuck up, right, in your application, explain to them why you fucked up. In the sense that like not like don't say the word like I fucked up, but like say like, you know, like it was a difficult transition. I didn't really understand how to study something, blah 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 blah. This is what I did to fix that. That's the important part, right? To show that you're able to change and improve as a human being, because you know that's like the one certainty we have in life is that we can change and improve. Otherwise, if none of us could change, right, all of us would just be stuck doing whatever the hell we're doing right now, and it's just like GG. But that's not the case of life, right? We can get better. So that's the main thing I want you to like take away from like the grades and stuff, right? Aside from this, I had like, you know, I struggled through classes, but it was fine. I learned how to like kind of study at some point, probably through like maybe like junior year. Like I feel like I had like the best grasp of like kind of being able to study, but then I realized that like really wasn't like the case. And I just thought I knew how to study, but I didn't, and then I figured it out later. Whatever, right? I was a biochemistry major, and I did a religion minor as well. I took like a bunch of wait, I mean, you can read these, right? Like you can go through. Like, I remember doing this like myself. Like I remember like some people like when they wouldn't blur out like their like information up here, like their sensitive information. I would be like pausing and I'd be reading that. I'm like, dude, like why am I reading this? I'm like such a freak. So like, you know, you can be a freak yourself and like pause through this as I'm like scrolling and rambling and like seeing it for yourself. So I'm not gonna like read out everything for yourself, like for you, because I know you're like a smart human being, right? But you know, moral of the story is, yes, you're pre-med, you're gonna take like at least the bare minimum of like whatever science courses to be competent, right? To have like basic like scientific understanding. And for me, I went with biochemistry because I'm like, oh, you know, in high school, I'm like, I like biology and I also like chemistry. And then I saw a word that had like biology and chemistry like put together, and then my stupid ass was like, wow, that's like so cool, I'm gonna do that. And actually ended up working out pretty well. So, and then I did the religion minor on the side as kind of like a way to kind of understand how like my own mind works and just get a better sense of yeah, I mean, I came from like a Buddhist background, and I always thought it was like something cool that I would want to explore. This is such like a wow, these are such like broad general statements. I realize I talk like this, but oh well, yeah. So that was my major and that was my minor. Cool. That's all you need to see for that. And I ended up with a something GPA. Where is it? What is BCPM again? I think this is like the science stuff. It's like, yeah, this is like the science GPA, which I had a 3.76. So that's like okay, I'd say, right? I think people were like, oh, you should aim for like, you know, to have this dude as like high as possible, right? Because like this is like what med schools and stuff will look is like indicative of like your ability to do well in like med school classes, which are predominantly science, right? But yeah, I mean, if your numbers are like not like this, or like higher or lower, whatever, like I think the general idea is you want to be able to show improvement in whatever you do, and yeah, show that you made an effort. You know, if you're really smart and some of this stuff just comes naturally to you and you get a 4.0, that's awesome. Like take that and like use that as like something to bolster your application, right? And if you have like a lower GPA and you're just like, oh fuck, I'm screwed, right? No, that's not the case. You can do better. You can, I don't know. I know there's like plenty of like programs after college that people do in order to like boost their GPA and like prove that they're able to like handle like the rigors of like scientific courses. Do that, or you know, if you're like in your first or second year of college and you're like, wow, I just like did not do very well in the beginning, then see if there's like some like find the way that you study, figure that out, see how your mind works, implement it, and kind of like keep track of it, and then see if a certain study technique or a certain method works better for you, and then if that works for you, stick with that, and then hopefully that translates to improvement over time. And I think that's ultimately what a school or anyone who's like a good AdCom member is going to want to see, someone who's like able to self-reflect a little bit on their performance and see if they can improve somehow, right? Okay, cool. Okay, MCAT stuff. Wow, oh my god, that was a whole like that's a whole can of worms in itself right there. Yeah, so let's talk about MCAT. So I took the MCAT 2 times. The first time was the summer before junior year. I remember studying for that, and like this was like with my like really bad study skills, because like I don't know if like yeah, okay, I'm talking about like this is the like there's like someone else like sitting there like listening to me. I'll just talk about my own experience. So in my own experience, high school was like really easy. It was like a breeze. You could coast through it, right? And this was done with like, you know, worst case scenario, I had to like cram a lot, like maybe like 1 or 2 nights before like some big exam, but otherwise I was like chilling, right? And that like translated to an A. And then when I got to college, I'd say like the first 2 years of college, maybe it wasn't necessarily like 1 or 2 days before the exam, right? I tried that like my first semester and I didn't do as well, like a B or whatever, right? But like, okay, so it's like fine, right? Maybe I have to like study a little bit more. So I would push back like the days before I like actually started to study, maybe like 3 or 4 days before the exam, and that ended up working out okay, right? And then once I got to the MCAT, I was like, oh, you know what? Like this is a lot of stuff, but like maybe I'll be fine, right? And then this was actually where I realized like I have no idea how to study, right? That's like a funny thing to say, but I have no idea how to study. I would just like follow the stuff that people were saying on YouTube with like Anki and stuff, and just like like read through your textbook, cool. Like I read through it, and like oh like I've seen this before, like I'm chilling, I'm fine, right? And then I'll just do the Anki for it, remember it, and I'm good to go. You know what? Like for some people that works. Like some people like I have like a cracked friend who like can just read stuff and just like remember it and like memorize it, and it's like it sticks like that, right? But for me, I realized like I needed to like actually have like an understanding of the material and like take some time to like process that material before I start stuffing and trying to like remember it like in my head, right? That just didn't work for me, and I didn't realize that first time around, and I got a 515. And right, this is by no means I'm not saying like 515 is a bad score. Like please don't like cancel me and be like, oh, this dude is saying like he wasn't happy with a 515, like crucify this dude, right? Like I've seen like all these comments on like Reddit and stuff, right? Again, this comes back to like know your own potential and your ability to do better, right? If this was like after I got this score, I wasn't sad, but I was like I feel like I can do better, right? And there's nothing wrong with that idea of like, oh, I feel that I can do better, right? For someone who's starting with like I don't know something like a 500 or something like that, right? If you feel like you can do better, right, that's what motivates you to take it again and try again, right? Same thing with a person who's like in a situation. I don't know. Some people have like 520s and they retake that stuff. Like, right, why, right? Like, don't like crucify them for like wanting to do that, right? They just want to do better, right? So in my case, I was like, you know what? I think I'm gonna try again. Honestly, like reflecting back on it now, when I was studying for this again, like I improved a couple of techniques that I think like helped my score go up a little bit. But there's definitely other things I could have done. But I mean, I'm looking at this retrospectively, so it's like who knows? Even if I like applied like my current knowledge in the way I'm like studying now to like what I did, then maybe I get a lower score. Who knows? But I'm just saying I shifted my technique a little bit from summer before junior year to that winter break of junior year. I like took that whole winter break to just like study, and that was a grind, right? That was tough to do, right? Like I spent time for like holidays and stuff, so like rest and stuff, but winter break was pretty short comparatively to like the 3 months that I had to study, which for the first time around. Which the first time around, I think I like if you can set aside time that's like protected and you can just really sit down and engage really deeply with the material and process it, because I think that summer I was working in a lab and I was also volunteering at the same time, and the time when I would like get back from doing all those activities, wow, my hair's like everywhere. When I would get back from doing all those activities, my brain would be kind of fried and tired, and I go to the gym as well, and I coach for myself. And when I would study, I had like 2 or 3 hours each day to like study and look at the material, right? But it wasn't really a deep level of processing sometimes. So I would say like just general advice for someone who is looking to like take the MCAT again. If you can set aside like 2-3 months to sit down deeply with the material and engage with it, I think that'll serve you well. Like it's definitely doable to do it with lots of other like responsibilities on the other side, right? It's just harder, right? I don't know, there's no other way to like there's nothing like phenomenal or significant about what I just said. If you have more stuff that's taking up more brain space, then you're not gonna have as much brain space to allocate for the test, right? But some people do fine and they do well. And to me that translated to like a 515. 518 was that 1 month I just literally took it was kind of tough because I had to like review all the material again, like the first third/half of the month, just to get myself like updated, refreshed. And then I think what changed was I wasn't afraid of doing practice questions as much the second time around. I did a lot more of like the UWorld stuff and the you know what's it called, UWorld AMC like full lengths and like the practice banks and stuff like that the second time around earlier, right? So I think a lot of people are really scared of like oh no, I need to learn everything first and then I'm gonna take my MCAT, right? That's like the very traditional way of like how schooling presents itself, right? But at least for my personality, I realize that when I take a practice test, it makes me realize just how much I don't know, or it gives me an idea of where I'm at, right? So if I take it and I do like okay, I'm like oh okay, like this is like fine, I'll just brush up on the places that I don't know, right? But if I take it, I'm like oh shit, I just like completely failed this and got like everything wrong, right? There's something very useful about that shock or fear factor of like wow, I need to get my shit together. That is very useful, a very useful motivation to get you to study, right? So that's why taking a practice test or just doing like some practice questions in the beginning is very useful. Wow, so profound of you, Jason, right? Anyways, okay. Oh, some of the schools I applied to, so that's like the MCAT story, right? A lot of stress, a lot of pain, a lot of just mental energy used up on just this. How long is this test? Like 7-hour test or something. So I know I'm missing a lot of there's a lot of like mental that goes into it as well. Not just wow, that's like not even that's so unspecific. A lot of mental. What I mean, okay, this is what I mean by a lot of mental. Obviously, a lot of mental energy in terms of like I realize I'm not even looking straight at the camera when I like should be looking up here. Should I make this bigger when I'm talking? I'll make this bigger when I'm talking. So what do I mean by a lot of like mental, right? So there's like just generally let's split it up into like things that take up your mental energy are like if you're thinking about something, if you're studying something, right? And then it can also be something emotional, right? Something just like the abject terror and fear that like surrounds you and like encompasses your whole world whenever you think about like the word MCAT, right? If that takes up like a lot of space in your head, there's gonna be less space, right? Like if like this is like a health bar or like just like a storage space, right? There's like 100 and like 70% of that is like anxiousness and worrying about like if I fail this test, if I don't do well, I'm retaking this. What if I do worse than my first one? That's just what they'll see, and like that's like a lot of like rumination and just like pain that's happening in your head, right? If that takes up like 70% of your like mental energy, you only have like another 30% to use for like thinking and processing the stuff that will actually help you like do well and like get a good score, right? So trying to reduce that as much as possible is very important as well. And how do you reduce that? Well, you can do things that maybe relieve and take your mind off of that, right? You can exercise and you can like go for a walk and you can like read something that's like not related to anything school and just like enjoy life and do things that make being a human being worth it, right? That's a good way of reducing that emotional toll and energy. And another way is kind of, if you notice that you just can't get your mind off of like this anxiety and this like, this desire to do well, but it becomes a point where it's like, it's not just a motivation, but it becomes more of a detriment to your own success. And you need to take a step back and chill and like really think about that and do, I think the biggest trick that people who are successful use is really like mental like reframing, right? I've like talked about this before, but it's like if someone is, going through something tough, right? The objective truth of what's happening is that they're going through something tough, right? Maybe they're like studying for tests. That sucks, right? Someone who is really down in the depths and just like, oh my god, like their mind is like so overloaded and they feel super overwhelmed and sad and just like this test is like so tough, right? Right? that's like extra added suffering on top of the already tough part of just having to study and take the test, right? Versus someone who's like thriving could be like, oh, you know what, like taking this test like really isn't so bad. Why? Well, because like at the end of the day, like I'm living like a good life. You know, I can like go outside, walk, breathe, look at the like I don't know the trees and the birds, and like wow, life is so good. I'm saying that because like my window's like right here, but they think about different things, right? And they don't let that like take up their brain space, right? So I'm not saying like don't feel or like that person who's like in the good headspace of like thinking about like just being lucky and being in the situation that they are in, and um and are able to like mentally shift from that state of wow this sucks to wow this is like I actually have a cool opportunity to be able to learn this stuff and to study this. Those are two very different ways of subjectively looking at the situation, the objective situation. The objective situation doesn't change, right? But for some reason, in one state, it's really hard, in the other state, it's really easy, right? So how do you shift from that state of, wow, this MCAT is like a really difficult test that is just terrible, and I want to cry, and it's so anxiety-inducing, if I don't do this, everyone will look at me as like a failure. Everything that I've worked up until this point is like, it's just over, GG, I'm cooked, right? How do you shift from that mindset to a mindset of, wow, you know what? At the end of the day, I'm like alive, and I am able to study these things, and I'm able to kind of maybe I don't exactly enjoy studying necessarily, but can I just being open to the possibility of like can I look at this in a different lens, so that I don't cause this added suffering to my own life and to my own mind because no one wants to suffer, right? That can be incredibly useful. So learning how to mentally shift, you're like a mental chameleon, right? That is very useful. That is very useful, and it's not just useful for MCAT in my experience, right? Because this test is like very hard, right? And that a lot of us up until like that point have not taken a test of this rigor, right? It's not just useful for kind of these academic difficulties, but it's actually incredibly useful for a whole range of different difficulties, right? So this could be like when you're volunteering or when you're researching in the lab or something and something goes wrong or you just have a shitty day, someone talks to you rudely and you're like, what the fuck? Like, like you're working so damn hard and you're putting up with a lot of stuff, right? And it kind of just feels like, wow, like this sucks, right? Is there a different way to look at those very micro experiences throughout each of your day and look at them a little bit differently? Like, are you open to the possibility of allowing yourself to look at it differently, right? So like I'm talking very like vaguely right now, right? But an example of that would be like, let's say someone talks rudely to you, like, I don't know, when you're volunteering or something, right? Okay, here's one way to look at it, right? This is the bad way. They speak rudely to you, and you're just like, man, I'm just like, you just keep thinking about it. You're like, oh my god, like this person sucks. I hate them. I'm so angry. Like, why, why they do that, right? Here's another way of looking at it. I don't know. Maybe they just went through something tough, right? Who knows? Like this life is full of suffering. Like maybe there's like their mom just died, right? It doesn't really matter if their mom died or not, right? Or if I'm not saying it doesn't matter if their mom died. I'm saying it doesn't matter if that fact is true or not. You don't know whether or not that's true, right? You don't know the extenuating like circumstances of this person, right? But using your imagination a little bit and thinking, wow, maybe this person is like going through something else that I don't necessarily know. That can completely shift your perspective on things and be like, you know what? I'm okay with putting up with a little bit of this person's like rudeness or whatever. They just like weren't thinking. I'll just brush it off, and it's like really not a big deal if that's what they're going through, right? What happened? The objective truth of the situation was that this person yelled at you. That is the same either way, right? But your mind state and the way you feel, which influences how you act and how able you are to continue down this very difficult path of applying to med school, right? It's completely shifted by shifting your mindset in this one situation, right? This very micro decision of like, am I going to take what this person said at face value, or maybe I'm gonna use my imagination and think that they're going through something tough. I'm just not gonna worry about it and brush it off, and my mind is so much lighter. I'm at ease and it's whatever. I'm chilling, right? Doesn't affect me anymore. I think that is a very underrated aspect and often not spoken of because it is very difficult to communicate. Aspect of people who are able to do well and who are able to push through hard things, right? I'm not saying I'm good at that stuff, right? This is just like from my own experience of like something that I've learned that I think is important for you to say. So I just went on like a crazy like long ramble. Sorry. Anyways, continuing on. I had to take this preview, this stupid thing. I don't know what this is. I honestly don't remember. It's like some multiple choice thing that really I don't think affected anything. I had to take Casper as well. I did pretty well in that. I got like fourth quartile. I think that's how they rank it. But yeah, I mean, if you guys want to have like a deeper dive into like how to approach those types of tests or whatever, I feel like I can do like another video or something. But let's get down to my experiences. So I did some research. This was, why did I put this like this publications experience side publication? Oh, okay. This was like I did research and this is like what it translated to. My grad student was like a beast and like submitted something to like science, which I happened to mooch off of because all I did was just like pipette stuff, but he was nice enough to put my name on the paper. Yeah, really honestly, all I did in research throughout undergrad was like lab work, like very basic lab work that it sucks, but again, right? Objective experience is the same. You're doing research because you know it's like important for med school, right? People want to know that you've done research, right? Objective experience is the same. One person can look at it from the lens of, wow, this shit sucks. I don't want to do this. This is terrible. It has nothing to do with what I'm going to do in the future. The other person can approach it from the lens of, you know what? Like somehow I'm actually contributing to like scientific knowledge in some way by doing this lab work. Maybe I'm gonna try and like understand that in my free time, or just on the side, I'll ask my grad students some more questions about how my work is actually like benefiting the project as a whole, and that gives me an idea of like the scientific process. Wow, that sounds so NPC of me to say, right? But right, approach these in two very different ways. For me, research was not my favorite. I'll be like completely honest and admit that, and I don't think that's like something I'm going to necessarily like. At least this type of like basic scientific research is not something I'm gonna like pursue down the line in med school. But I think at least in undergrad, it gave me some like valuable insights into like what this research was, which honestly I could tell you what it is. I'm just not going to tell you like the details about it because like that's not what I want to spend my mental energy on right now. But you can read it here: designing synthetic phosphorylation circuits, right? Stuff with SCFEs and like cytokines. Cool, awesome. Bioengineering, right? Okay. Okay. Conferences attended. This is just some stuff that I thought would be cool to include. This was like a refugee health, mental health and wellness conference that I went to. This was honestly a pretty cool experience that I was able to get exposed to because I did some work with another organization. It's called PAIR. It's like active. I don't know if it's active outside of Houston, but I was like located in Houston for undergrad. And basically, like at PAIR, I would go to this high school every week, and at these high schools there were like refugee kids, right? Houston's like one of like the cities that have like a pretty large like refugee population, and a lot of the kids that are displaced, right? Like man, they're just like thrown into like the U.S. like education system with like no English knowledge or anything, right? And they expect these kids to take these classes that are way above their like capabilities, right? So pair was kind of like an opportunity for like us college kids to kind of teach and kind of like build the base of the basic English, basic just like cultural knowledge and stuff about the U.S. to get these kids like a little bit more situated. And okay, here, what's the big thing I want you to take away from this? The big thing I want you to take away from this is to be open to experiences and just be aware of like what's happening. If you see that there's like an opportunity to jump on that you think would be cool and really resonates with you, do that, right? Like for me, pair, I had no idea about this thing until like sophomore or junior year. It was when I was like studying for my MCAT actually, and I studied with one of my friends, Adam, on campus one day, and he was telling me about like pair because he was like involved in it, right? And he's like, dude, this stuff is like super cool. Like we get to work with refugee kids, and that just like resonated with me. And this small conversation, right, turned into something where I was like actively volunteering with pair, became like a site leader or something, and got to meet this like cool doctor lady who invited me to come to this like conference because I told her about once I like met her at the pair session, I was like she had just given like this speech about and then like introduced us to like the situation that these kids are in, and it really resonated with me because my grandpa was like a refugee, right? So I came up to her and after I'm like, wow, your speech was like awesome. Like that really resonated with me because like this is like my own personal experience. I've seen this myself. Is there any way I can get involved, right? And she's like, yeah, like come to this conference, help out, volunteer, like do stuff, and like you'll get to learn more stuff as well. And it was just awesome, right? So being open to experiences. If I hadn't talked to my friend, if I hadn't joined pair as a result of my friend, right? If I hadn't at that whatever pair session that it was, met that doctor, went up to her, like had the balls to go up to her and talk to her and be like, hey, this is something that's really cool. If I just hadn't been kind of aware of my general experience and what was available to me and taken action, I wouldn't have been able to like write this, which maybe contributed to me getting into med school, right? So it's not necessarily that you have to cater and like be so robotic and just like inhuman in the sense where it's like I'm gonna do this, and this is gonna get me into med school, right? That's not my personal experience. Maybe a little bit of that is required because like generally, yeah, I have to do well in my classes. I have to do well in my MCAT. I have to do well in I have to do at least some research and some volunteering, right? But that I have to do it. That is the mindset that will not be able to motivate you and expose you to experiences that really resonate with who you are as a person and as an applicant. That's my experience, right? I don't know. Maybe other people do do this, and you're set. Sure, whatever, man. Go with it. My experience and what I feel like makes a good doctor and a good, just genuine human being is being open to your own experience. Listening to what resonates with you, and once you find that thing, pursue it, right? Pursue it. Take action. Don't just sit around, right? Okay, cool. Community service volunteer medical clinic. What is this? TVD. Oh, this was awesome. So this is another example of being open to my general awareness and making sure I take action with things that resonate with me. I got to go to Vietnam for a summer. The summer actually while I was applying to med school, but it was so cool and the experience was like, I thought it would be so awesome that I wrote about it ahead of time, and it ended up being one of the coolest experiences that I talked about during my interviews the most, right? So yeah, this was because I was shadowing a doctor who was on the board of this this global health conference thingy that whoa, oh my god, that was sick. What the hell? Anyways, I'm gonna stop doing that. It's like scary, bro. I love balloons. Yeah, he was on the board of this thing one day when I was shadowing him. He was talking to me about this global health conference thing, and I was like, I have no idea what the hell global health is, bro. Like, come on now. And he was like, dude, you should like come with me to this global health conference thing because you never know. Like, you can learn a little bit more about it, and you never know how just like one. He said this. I remember him saying this. You never know how like one small interaction can completely change the trajectory and course of your career, right? So I was like, you know what? He wants me to come. I'll come. I'll be open to this. And as a result of coming to that conference, I ended up talking to a couple doctors, and I ended up getting connected with this one doctor who every summer he goes back to Vietnam, which is my parents' hometown, by the way. Like a city in Vietnam, which is my parents' hometown, and brings this whole like troupe of like doctors and stuff to come volunteer, teach, and operate. And it was so cool. And I talked to him about this, and we ended up figuring out somehow that actually my grandpa knew his dad, and his dad was like the person who originated this program, and they were like super closely connected. Like, what are the odds, right? Like, what the hell? The only way I would have been able to figure this out is if I had taken the risk, gone out of my comfort zone, but still felt like this could have been something. This would be something cool, and pursued it. Right after having that conversation with the doctor I was shadowing, gone to the conference, opened myself up to talking to the doctors at the conference, finding this one doctor, and then ultimately going back to Vietnam, where I got to, I shadowed, I documented kind of this whole encounter and this whole kind of what the group does with photos and stuff. I was a photographer. I was like a photographer, so cool. And it all came from just like opening myself up to my experience, right? So awesome. That's the takeaway from this. That's that global health conference, whatever. I volunteered at the hospital, right? Wow, amazing. A future, what's it called? Someone applying to med school who's volunteering, unheard of, right? Shadowing. I shadowed. I don't know how else to like make this any more interesting, but here's my advice for volunteering and shadowing. Wow, came to me like a brilliant bubble out of nowhere. So a lot of times, I'm gonna ramble again because I like rambling. A lot of times, students will, shadow, and they'll volunteer, and they're like, why do I have to do this, right? This shit sucks. Well, why do you have to do it? You don't have to do it, right? I mean, you're doing it because like, you want to go to med school, right? That's like the only reason why you feel like you have to do it, right? Is there another way? Again, here we're gonna cognitively reframe a little bit, mentally reframe our situation, to see if I can look at this in a different light. As I'm volunteering, right? I'm gonna have to be in the hospital anyways, right? Let's look at this from a very like not narcissistic, like very like I'm only doing this just to get into med school type of standpoint, and I don't really care about like the experiences and takeaways that I have in the meantime, right? Let's go into like that perspective of this person. This person has to go into the hospital for 3-4 hours. They have to push around some carts. They have to fold some bed sheets up. They have to do a whole bunch of stuff that really they would honestly rather not be doing. They'd rather just be at home and like watching some Netflix and chilling, right? That's to some point relatable if we're being like completely honest, right? Of course, some of us would rather just like sit at home and like do whatever the fuck we feel like doing rather than like being in the hospital and just like, oh, I have to do this, right? Why do you have to approach it with that mindset, right? Question that to yourself. That's causing you a lot of pain and suffering, and in its own right, it's kind of hindering you from really getting the full access to a whole bunch of other experiences and reflections and takeaways that are very important when it comes to, interviewing, to explaining your own experience, right? Some person who goes into volunteering with that mindset is not going to be able to have the takeaways of, why is volunteering important? What is the hospital like? You have this full 3-4 hours free access inside of a hospital and healthcare system to see with your own eyes what the environment that you might be working in someday is going to be like. That's valuable time, right? Notice what I'm doing here. I'm shifting my mindset, right? I'm thinking, this is what I want to do in the future. This is what I'm working so hard to get, right? Why don't I just use this as a learning opportunity and really just free time to just see what my environment is going to be like once I achieve the goal that I'm trying to set out to do? And what is this environment really like? Can I learn a little bit more about it? How do the nurses interact with patients? How do the doctors interact with patients? How can I interact with the patients in a way that is somewhat meaningful? Isn't that what I want to do in the future anyways, right? If I'm in the OR, maybe I don't necessarily know exactly what the hell the surgeon is doing, right? I'm not expected to know that because I'm just like a lowly undergrad, right? But can I look at this from the lens of, wow, this is really something cool. I get to see the inside of a human's body. That is pretty an unnatural sight that not many people get to do. And I get to see the surgeon repair and use their knowledge that they're gaining through studying, through persevering through so many difficult classes and just very rigorous institutions and academics and whatever, right? To at the finish line someday operating on this person, being entrusted with, this person's health, livelihood, which affects their family's well-being, right? Because a whole bunch of other people are relying on this person being healthy and happy so that they're happy. Can I take the chance to step back a little bit and appreciate that? What happens to the experience of volunteering then? Does it become something that is, I have to do this sucks? No, it becomes something that is valuable. It became something that sucked to becoming something that is very valuable, very cool, and gives you a whole bunch of takeaways that you can internalize yourself and really wrap your head and use as a motivation to keep going, to keep persevering through what is difficult, right? And applying to med school. And if you're looking at it through a very objective lens, right, in the process of reflecting and internalizing what you've seen, you also have a lot more stuff to talk about and write about for your second years, right? And your interviews or whatever. That shouldn't be your motivating factor. Again, I don't want this to come across as everything that you do should be for the purpose of applying to med school. No, you're more than just someone who, your identity is more than just someone who's applying to med school, right? Your identity is a person who's genuinely interested, hopefully, if you're going down this path, someone who's genuinely interested in medicine and wants to explore it and see what this field has to offer, right? Okay, we'll leave it there because I love rambling. Okay, this is me just blazing Dr. Kaplan because he was indeed the goat. He was this old surgeon, and just he epitomized all of the I'm an old surgeon stereotypes, but also being one of the most helpful mentors that I have. Just not in terms of he didn't go down and look at my application with me, but just in terms of conversation and reflecting on what the life of a surgeon and the life of a doctor is really like and how to be a good doctor. Being genuine and being empathetic doesn't necessarily have to mean that you're always oh my god, are you okay? Right? No, that's not. I don't think that's what being a good doctor is. I think what being a good doctor is in your own style and in your own, especially for this guy, he had a sense of humor, right? Sometimes a patient would tell him about something, some injury or something that just happened, and he'd crack a joke. And just traditional textbook styles would say, oh, that is not very good to do, right? You shouldn't do that. But in his own way, because the patient understood he was being genuine and actually cared about what they were going through, that cracking a joke in some ways was a lot more helpful than him just being oh my god, are you okay? Right? No, they understood he was being genuine. They understood that he cared about them, right? And he kind of taught me this is kind of the way I want to approach my physicianship stylistically, whatever, right? How I want to talk with patients and interact with them, right? Just be real, right? We're human beings. We're talking one-to-one like this, right? Cool. All right. I did some tutoring stuff at my college. Honestly, this is because a friend recommended me that I do this, right? Again, being open to experiences, right? A lot of people are oh my god, things are so nepotistic, and this world is impossible to navigate if you don't have any connections yourself. You know what? You're actually correct. A lot of the times, the ways that you had in life is being able to have relationships with people and knowing the right people to speak to guide you and to be open to certain things, right? Is that if taken to an extreme, is that bad? Yeah, it's nepotism, right? But at some level, we are very codependent on the people that are around us to understand things and to have access to experiences, right? So what does that mean for you? Well, you should be open to getting to know the people who are around you in a genuine way, right? Not just because you want access to opportunities that will come through if the person you're talking to is at least smart and has a brain. Do it because you're genuinely interested, or you genuinely have a friendship with this person, connect with them, and then maybe some opportunity opens up. I'm not saying it will 100% will or 100% won't, but that is the fact of life. Things are not 100%, right? Otherwise, it would be way too boring, right? If nothing had any risk to it. Yeah, this was as a result of a friend who was a head mentor, and he was like, yo, you should do this. I'm like, okay, I'll apply, and I got it, and I ended up doing it, and I think it helped bolster my application. Cool. That was only possible because I had the connection, right? Sure. Some other doctors that I shadowed, right, genuine just reflections on that. This was Pear. Cool, awesome, right? I talked a little bit about Pear and why that was meaningful to me. Yeah, the thing with these AMCAS activities is they want you to reflect sometimes in a little bit of a storytelling manner. I realize this is the way that I approached it because I honestly like telling stories. But I don't think you have to do it this way, but it's one of the ways to show that you were actually paying attention and you reflected on the experience that you were involved in, right? One of the easier ways to do that, right? It's a little bit harder to tell if you just speak a little bit too robotically and say this is what I did, right? If something was your most meaningful activity, right? You shouldn't look like the experience description, right? It shouldn't look like I did this, my focus was this, we worked on that. That's fine for the general description of the experience, right? I mean, objectively you have to speak about what you did, right? But really, in the most meaningful experience, some advice I would give for this is kind of this is a subjective take on things, right? Your own self-reflection. That's not objective, right? What did you learn from that? What are some stories and experiences that you got from that are outside of this objective description, right? Volunteered, read about that, right? Researched. This is something I did over the summer after my freshman year. Did some what's it called? I was a histotech assistant, just doing some stuff, honors, awards, okay, whatever. Hobbies, I was pretty involved with like the photography club. That was something that I really liked doing, like even before college. So I kept doing that in college, right? While amazing, right? People don't want robots as as their doctor. They want them to have at least some sign of humanity outside of just studying, right? And if you're a human being, I think that it is, and you're open to your experience, and you are nothing wrong with being one pointed and directed in the path that you want to take in life, right? Of course, that's awesome, right? So you can also find things that are outside of that, because life is ultimately not just that one thing that you were trying to pursue, right? There's so many other different things that are out there. You just happened in your situation, in your specific personality, you happen to go with this one field of study and this one career path, right? But be open to the fact that there are lots of other things out there that are cool and add to the value of life that other people genuinely enjoy doing, and maybe you can also find a little bit of enjoyment in those as well, right? So for me, this is like photography. I like doing photography. Cool. Nothing more to say about that. I loved lifting, and I would always lift and stuff like, I don't know, just like after school as much as I could with friends. Awesome. All right. Personal statement. Hooray! Wow, I get to tell you like my most intimate and deepest, darkest secrets, right? Wow, isn't that like what drew you to this in the first place? I remember like watching these and just like getting to see and hear someone's intimate life story. And yes, like these are intimate, right? Like some people don't necessarily feel comfortable about sharing all of this stuff. Like some people they'll just read it out loud, but they like won't put the text out or whatever, right? And like there's nothing wrong with that, right? Because it's like, yes, this is a very intimate thing. For me, I feel like I like to be like fully transparent, and I feel like this would be helpful for me if I was applying to just like be able to read it. I don't want to like have to listen to the whole thing, so you can just like pause it and read it if you want. Right? But don't like copy the shit, because like, I mean, it's really not going to do you any good, because like once you get to the interview or secondary, and like imagine you have to like talk about like if you like somehow tried to copy this, right? Again, it wouldn't be really useful, because like this is my own experience, and you wouldn't be able to talk from my experience, and that would show for someone who's like genuinely like listening, right? So just take the general takeaways from this, right? General takeaways, right? What are things that are useful, like good about this? What are things that are bad about it? You decide for yourself. I won't say anymore. Actually, I'll make some like general like self-reflections on myself at the end of this. I'll read it through. How cheesy. Well, I'm getting teary-eyed like reading this right now. Okay, all right. My parents' beauty salon was my second home. Waking up now, I get the sense that something's missing when I don't hear the bubbling of the spa chairs or my mom's voice yelling the same phrase I've heard since I was 4. Manali, lingwit nya. Right, Jason, come on, let's move the floor. All my life, I've watched as my parents cleaned up after others and made them feel better about themselves. The customers, right? Not my parents. Maybe that makes them feel better about themselves. Okay, it does. Right, I'll go into this. Their job brings them value beyond a means to make a living. Whether it's the ginger candies my mom makes on Lunar New Year for Miss Jill, or the trips after work to check up on Grandma Ross after her hernia repair. These moments show me the value of what they do. They're there for others. Their longtime customers were no different than family to them, and they showed me what it meant to give service in context of care. I dreamed of a career where I could care for others, engaging this level of connection, while also utilizing the education I was lucky to receive. Medicine had an intangible quality that drew me in. I hadn't quite processed it yet, but I was determined to explore and figure it out. During one of my first volunteer shifts at this hospital, I accompanied an older lady to the cafeteria to get lunch. Our conversation was all over the place, but I loved it. And we shared stories about hometowns, pondered the menu options, and bonded over how difficult this damn hospital was to navigate. I'd asked her why she was in the hospital, and was shocked when she told me she was actually there for her 40-year-old son. She wanted to support him as he'd lost most of the feeling in his face. I glanced down, and the wheelchair I was pushing her in was no deterrent for her in taking care of her boy. She was like in a wheelchair. Like, wow, I'm pushing her around. I thought she was there because of, she like messed up something in her leg or something for herself, and she's there for her boy, right? After I brought her back to his room, she thanked me for taking care of her, telling me how much she liked talking to me and how I helped take her mind off of the situation. I was confused at first, but after taking the time to reflect, I realized that whether it was through me engaging her in conversation or her being present for her child despite her limited mobility, no matter in what setting, care was about being fully there for others. Right? This was like a big takeaway for me, and it wasn't just realized through this like one moment, even though this is like the moment that I like wrote about. Right? I learned about this like just reflecting on general experiences I had. Like taking care of someone doesn't necessarily mean that like, yes, the physical act of taking care of someone is like, very important. That leads to the objective outcome many times of them feeling better, right? But something that's also very important is just being present there as a human being, interacting with that person, conversation. That's also very important. Human part of oh my god, humanistic aspects of medicine. Wow, I sound like such an NPC, right? Anyways, right, this is like that's a very important part of caretaking, right? And I think if you're going to be a physician, that is an important part, and you're taking care of people, that's an important part of what it means to be a doctor, to take care of them, not just in the physical sense, right, but also in the mental sense of like being there for them, right? There's something very you can tell like when someone's talking to you and they're just really not like focused, right? They're like minded, like they're all over the place. They're saying like, yeah, I'm listening, dude. Like, oh my god, this sucks, right? You can tell they're not really listening if you really take the time to like pay attention, right? But it's a very different experience when you're talking to someone and you can tell that they're listening to you and they genuinely care about what you're saying. Two very, very, very different things, right? So take note of that. I think that's like a really important point, just in general, not even just like in terms of like applying for med school, but it's just an important point to take note of in your everyday life with the people that you encounter, right? I think you'll realize that the people that take the time to listen to you and care, right? Sometimes listening to does equate to like caring for someone. Those people are very valuable. Keep them in your lives, right? Cool. I just got hella reflective there. All right, let's take a step back, Jason. Chill. All right, where was I? Cares about being there for others, right? Like this lady, like I mean, she's in a wheelchair. She can't really like what much can she do to take care of her kid? Like maybe she's like, her kid was like in her kid. I say kid, even though he's like 40 years old, but I just whatever, right? He's in like he couldn't move, like he had just come out of like this operation. I'm not gonna go like into specifics and stuff, and then like most of the stuff that would have helped him could have been done by like the nurses, right? Just like bringing him water, helping feed him, stuff like that, right? And this lady's in a wheelchair. Like any rational person who's like thinking of this like super objectively and stuff, right, would be like, oh, this lady can actually help her kid. No, the aspect of being there, having a conversation with him, and him just knowing that his mom is there for him is very important in making him feel cared for, and that contributes to his health, right? Think about that. I don't know, that was like a big thing for me to like realize, but I keep talking about this, I keep yapping about this, right? As I began shadowing doctors, I noticed that this principle was always present. Wow, I'm so glad I didn't mess up principal and principal, right? Principal is your pal. No. Their job wasn't about fitting in as many people as possible, like these doctors' jobs, right? Rather, they took the time to make their patients feel comfortable and cared for. Dr. Gentry's eye contact with the patient showed them that they had his full attention. Dr. Kaplan's self-deprecating humor endeared them and made them feel like equals. Dr. Din's polite southern talk, ma'am, sir, lighthearted jokes could always make them laugh. Physicianship stood out to me as this unique opportunity to connect with patients and ensure that they could be in their best state. I understood the sentiment. I felt the pain when my grandpa lost the fight with his cancer, and so too I felt the relief when my mom made it through her hysterectomy and I could hug her tight. I saw from these experiences that a doctor's presence was the crucial aspect in the caretaking process that enabled patients to be present for their loved ones. Wow, I'm getting so teary-eyed reading this. Not really. I've read this a lot. That's the one thing you'll get used to, especially like when you look a lot at personal statements and revise your own, right? I think sometimes it can like easy to like can be easy to like lose that human touch. You're just like working on it so much and trying to make sure like what you're conveying is what you really mean to convey, that you like you're just like whatever, like, I don't really care about this anymore, right? But try and like if you feel that way, take a step back, don't look at it for a little bit, and then come back to it. And then I think a lot of times the thoughts and the emotions and the ideas that you're trying to convey will come a little bit more naturally. And I'll go over like at the end like what I think would be like a good way to kind of like reflect and come up with this like personal statement. All right. Where was I? Okay, I aspired to find my own way of fostering connections with and for others, emulating what I saw from those above me, right? These physicians that I saw. I saw understanding a patient's spiritual beliefs made them feel appreciated and led to a more engaging conversation. So I pursued a minor in religious studies. This is real, by the way. This is crazy. I remember talking to a patient about like his religion. And I didn't come from that religion myself, but just like having an understanding of it, it's like, wow, that's so cool that you know that. And like we talked a little bit more about that, right? Just having that conversation was nice, and we connected from human to human, right? It doesn't matter that we're not necessarily the same. Of course, not every human is the same, but being able to like find those commonalities is a big part of making a connection with someone, right? I saw how my inability to say even a simple phrase to the Spanish-speaking patients at the hospital held me back from helping them, so I signed up for a Spanish class. Spoiler alert: I took the Spanish class and I did okay, right? But I'm still terrible at speaking Spanish, so I tried my best. But I just honestly, this is a cope. But I don't think I have the brain to like learn languages that well. Okay. I saw the tired faces that lined the waiting rooms, so I determined to volunteer my time and free up time for the nurses and doctors to attend directly to patients. Right. This is another part of maybe not viewing volunteering and shadowing as things that you have to do, but maybe things that are interesting and cool that you get to do. How cheesy and like what a nerd I sound like for saying that, right? But wow, amazing. Like somehow when you shift your mindset to things that you enjoy doing, you can talk about them a little bit more like you actually enjoy doing them, instead of it doesn't come out off as like, oh, this dude definitely didn't like doing this stuff at all, right? So, and if you want to come across as an applicant that seems genuinely interested in medicine, maybe you actually have to be genuinely interested in medicine somehow. Interesting. Wow, crazy how that works. Okay, let's see. Where was I? Oh, I saw the difficulties experienced by my refugee grandfather reflected in the faces of the students at Pear, and I resolved to make their lives easier by giving them resources to help them succeed in their new environments. Okay, chasing these opportunities has given me the smallest glimpse into what physicianship is like, but I know there's a lot more to learn. Still, as I look towards the people that I aspire to be and back to my parents who have supported me my whole life, I can't help but see similarities. I see Dr. Gentry probing a patient's feet for neuropathy and squeezing their fingers looking for edema. I see Dr. Kaplan shaving a patient's hair and rubbing in the orange round drop to repair for hernia repair. I see Dr. Den moving and suturing delicate tissues for vulvar reconstruction. And at the same time, I see my parents filing fingernails, scrubbing calluses, and clipping hair for their customers. These jobs are not glamorous, they're humbling, and they show you that the beauty of life lies beyond the superficial. Medicine calls to me because it shares the qualities of care and service I've seen through my parents, and the unique trust shared between the patient and doctor is what continues to draw me in. It's precisely this level of human connection that motivates me to become a physician. As I continue my path to reaching this goal and beyond, I will hold the principles instilled into me by my parents and mentors so that I can be present for others to ensure that they too can be present for those that they love. Okay, awesome. So, I don't know. I do know that I'm going to explain this thing first, so I can talk. Wow, man, I've been recording this for a while now. But, yeah, if you're going down this path of medicine, I think at some point or another, you're going to realize, like, at least this is my experience. You're going to realize, and I'm speaking to my own experience right now, you're going to realize at some point or another that the motivating factor that maybe initially pushed you in, maybe it's you get to see these really cool procedures. You get to, wow, society looks at you and it's just like, wow, you're a doctor, right? This dude definitely makes like $500K a year and is living the best life ever, and he gets the status of being a doctor, right? These things that initially push you into medicine are not the driving, motivating factors that can sustain you if you're going to go down this path. I'm just going to be outright blunt and say that those are my thoughts, right? At some point or another, the reason you chose medicine, and at least this is the sense that I got for myself, because like I remember how I felt about like the field of medicine before this. The thing that like really drew me to it was the level of human interaction, emotion, and just you get to go so much deeper and see parts of a person. And this is obviously maybe physical sense, but like definitely what I'm talking about here is like the mental sense. Like you get to see this person at a part of their life that is just they're in like their worst state, right? Maybe not completely worst state, but like in a state of pain and just not what they're used to being able to being in. They're not used to being in the state of like pain and like suffering, right? You get to, and when you meet a person in that state of being they're very vulnerable, right, to you, that is a very special level of human engagement that not many people get to engage in and get to see, unless you're like really close to, family friend or family's friends or something like that, right? And you get to experience this with a stranger, right? Someone that you maybe have never seen or heard of until the moment that you interact with them. There's something really special about that. And the thing that really drew me to medicine was the fact that when you encounter people in those states, right, kind of all those like superficial appearances and barriers and kind of the superficial interactions of trying to act in a way to impress someone or to come off a certain way as polite or something like that all goes away. It's just raw, genuine, like, shit, you need help, and I am going to try and help you in the best way that I can. That's something special. And I think that's, if I'm speaking from my own experience here and what I've seen, but I think that's like the motivating factor that will push and make a successful physician if they're doing it for those reasons. Because not many people get to see that side of others, and not many people understand that side of the job or the field either, right? So if you're in a position where you have an inkling of a sense that this is something that you're interested in, and you're interested in it for those kind of general reasons that I just outlined, keep working towards it. That's something worthy and proud of, and something worthy and something you should be proud of to work towards. It's not something nerdy or weird or whatever, right? Yes, you're going to have to go through a lot of suffering in the sense that you're going to have to put up with a lot of school, a lot of activities, lots of things that I'm just going to speak very generally of at this point. But that doesn't mean it's not something that's worth doing. Of course, the path is going to be hard because you are going to be expected to be put in some very difficult situations. And in order to be someone who's competent and someone who's able to handle these very difficult situations of life, you have to be someone who's able to put up with a lot of shit, right? But you have to view it as shit, right? You can view this as this is the process of becoming and enjoying that process and understanding that if I'm going to get to this point that I want to get to and be this person that I want to be or whatever, right, in the future, this is just the process of becoming. It is just the process. Don't impute and add and create any more sense of difficulty than what the objective difficulty already is, right? I think I've hammered that in a lot up until this point. But yeah, okay. That was my pep talk for whoever wants to listen. But these are the schools I applied to. I'm just gonna scroll. You can just like, I don't know, pause and stuff if you don't like really look at that. I applied to some Texas schools as well because I went to school in Texas. A lot of other people were applying to schools in Texas, so I was like, oh, bet, okay, cool. I'll apply to some Texas schools. But yeah, tips for writing a personal statement. I'd say, I don't know, make this bigger either. Tips for writing a personal statement. I would say, be as raw as you possibly can, in the sense that, right, don't try and, this never starts or ends well. Never starts or ends well if you try and like write something that is made for the purpose of trying to impress someone else. It just comes off as not honest, and you just won't. You can tell, right? You can tell when someone's being what's the word, disingenuous or something, right? So just like sit back and be like, oh wow, like what was like my first actual thing that like made me interested in medicine? Maybe like before like I had any real conception of what medicine was, I like heard about this from my parents, or I heard about this from I don't know what I saw on TV shows and media, and I thought it was just something cool to like pursue, right? Okay, maybe everyone kind of has that like thing or whatever, but start with the very first experience that gave you a little bit more insight, other than that superficial kind of image of medicine, right? Start with that, the first experience that you pursued that gave you some insight into that, and then see if there's any common themes about that and what you were interested previously in your life. So for me, I like reflected on this experience I had with this like one lady, right? That showed me that like, oh, caring about others means like being present for them and like having conversation with them, and this is like something I saw like my parents doing, and it brought them some level of meaning. And I remember talking about that with them, even before I was interested in medicine. So I connected it to that, right? And then once you have that kind of initial moment laid out, that kind of theme that ties everything together, right? That like what was that initial spark that interested you? See how that initial spark, progressed and turned into a fire that got bigger and bigger and bigger. While I'm speaking so artistically and whatever, right? No, see how that led to you pursuing other experiences, right? Like, of course, one initial spark is not enough to start everything, right? From that initial experience, maybe you pursued something else, right? That made you a little bit more interested in medicine, right? And you got to see a different side of it, and you had some certain takeaways and reflections, right? Write about those reflections, I would say, is like a big piece of advice I'd give, just generally for personal statements, right? Don't just talk about what you did, right? Talk about how you felt and how what you did impacted your, mind and the way you see things, and shifted that a little bit. Man, I feel like we keep coming back to this theme of mental transformation, right? How the way you think and the way you see the world changes. That is super, super important to get. And being able to show how, you saw medicine as this one thing, and you decided to pursue this other thing, which taught you this other thing, and you pursued another thing because of that, and then these are all the takeaways that you've had. That's what leads to a personal statement, right? Not just I did this, and then I did this, and while this doctor was super helpful to this patient, right? That doesn't say anything about you. You need to talk about how that experience impacted you. That's what's a personal statement, not a statement, right? Okay. All right. I feel like I've yapped and talked long enough here. But yeah, I mean, hopefully this was somewhat helpful to the person listening to it. I hope. I don't know who's going to view this, but I hope the person who views this understands to some extent what I'm trying to express. And yeah, take my advice with a grain of salt. Again, right? See what works for you in your own experience. If there's something useful that you think you took away from this video, take it, use it for yourself. The other stuff, discard. All right, awesome. Let's end it there. I think it's good enough out here.